I fell in love with photography at the ocean. The power, the waves, the storms, the sunsets, the sunrises. It absolutely took my breath away, and I got completely addicted to seascape photography. One of the cool things I love about it is that you can completely control and transform the look of the ocean with one amazing tool. And you can probably guess what that tool is. Yeah, shutter speed. You can take the ocean and capture its complete like ravageness. Ravageness? Is that a word? Or you can completely smooth it out and calm the ocean. It's almost this feeling of like power to say, I can control the ocean with the click of this button. So I thought I'd get on here, show you some samples of photographs shot at different shutter speeds, and talk a little bit about the tools and circumstances you would need to get the settings right to make the ocean look exactly how you want it to. You can see here I have a timeline of some of the photos I want to talk about. I'm not necessarily going to go into all of these, but some of these are good examples of how different shutter speeds can completely change the look of the ocean when we're shooting it. So this one here was shot at Sunset Cliffs in San Diego. You can have my info up here so you can see it was shot at 1/10 of a second at f/22 ISO 100. And at 1/10 of a second, you're not going to get that really milky look to the water, but you are going to see some movement to it. It's just enough to make the outgoing wave look more like a waterfall in this circumstance. You can see in the back here that is just not super sharp. And for this circumstance, that's exactly what I wanted. And so we have to really think about our exposure triangle here, because if we want to shoot at 1/10 of a second, but it's a super bright day, we gotta move our aperture all the way to close it up to like f/22, and experiment to see where you need to be. But let in as little light as possible so we can keep the shutter speed open for as long as possible. So that's one example here that I really enjoyed. This sample here is a little bit different. You can see we have a 10-second exposure also at f/22 because this was just at sunset and it was still fairly bright, and you can see the sun just illuminated these buildings, just so cool. And I wanted to flatten out this bay. You know, you could see some remnants, there were some boats passing and stuff, but at 10 seconds, that's enough to take that water and just completely flatten it out so we're not getting the effects of waves. And that can be really great at sunset, or if you want to make a still look to the water and capture some of the reflection happening. Another example of longer exposure, this is a 5-second exposure at f/16 in San Francisco, kind of a classic shot at Baker Beach. And again, I just wanted to get that water just moving. I didn't want, you know, the San Francisco Bay, it gets super choppy and the water is sometimes not the most beautiful. But at long exposure, it completely changes the game. It just flattens it out and kind of adds that misty, more ethereal look to it. And especially under these skies on this day, this was an atmospheric river coming through. Here's one more long exposure, or maybe a couple more that I want to show you. But this is shot in Oceanside, California. This is actually a sunrise picture. The sun was coming up way off to the left here, and you can see we're a 2-second exposure also at f/22. So that's one of the tricks, is just to close down that aperture as much as possible, and then that allows you to open up your shutter for a longer period of time. The other thing you can do is get a filter for your lens, like those sunglasses for your lens. You can screw it on, or there's other different types of filters for your lens that basically put on sunglasses, and then you can keep your shutter open for essentially as long as you want, just depending on the type of filter that you get. And then, of course, capturing just the raw power of the ocean, you want to use a super fast shutter speed. So here we're 1/640th of a second, and we've opened up the aperture all the way to f/4.5. The cat likes to come in here and help me work sometimes, so I see the kitty. But that allows you to just capture the wave as it is. And 6/40th might even have been slow. Sometimes you want to do 1,000 or 2,000th of a second when you're really looking to capture that wave spray. So here's another version of that also at 1/640th. This was sunrise. You can see the sun just coming up off screen over here, but this was a high tide, like the super king tides in San Diego, and they were just exploding against these cliffs. These cliffs are probably 300 feet tall. And again, just 1/640th of a second with the aperture wide open just allows for that super crisp image where you can almost see the water droplets. There's another one. Oh, here, this is one I want to talk about too, because sometimes, like, you want somewhere right in the middle, so 1/15 of a second, and that kind of allows those wave sprays to not be quite as defined as they are in something like this. They're a little more, they look like they're a little more stringy, and that could be a really cool look when you're dealing with wave sprays. You do need a tripod when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, so put your camera on a tripod, close down your aperture, and open that shutter speed for somewhere around a 10th, 20th, 15th of a second, and you're going to get these really cool looking wispy sprays. This is 1/500th of a second, just massive swell coming in off of the Southern California coast. That back spray, so you got these offshore winds, and I wanted to catch that, so that's a faster shutter speed in order to do that. And then coming like this, we got 8 seconds. An 8-second exposure is really going to flatten out the water. You're going to get a little bit of motion, but just a beautiful, beautiful look. You need to make sure you have a tripod, and then use your ISO. If you're on a tripod, I keep my ISO at 100 and just work with the aperture and the shutter speed. So if I want a shutter speed of 8-10 seconds, I just need to just move my aperture to where it needs to be appropriately. In this case, it was f20, so you need to experiment and see where you need to be. But just catching those fine details of an ocean wave. Here's 1/1250th of a second, and that allows you to just get that super fine detail in the wave. So it just depends on what you want to shoot. Are you looking to capture just the raw power and the detail of a breaking wave, or do you want to flatten out the ocean and get reflections and just give it more comforting, soothing type of look? Totally depends, but you have the power to do it no matter what the conditions are that day. Had I done a long exposure here, this would have been a completely different look, and it might have been really, really cool. But I didn't do that in this case. I wanted to just capture just that exploding wave, and the only way to do that was a super fast shutter speed. So some other things to keep in mind when you're out shooting the ocean: make sure you have a lens wipe, some kind of a microfiber cloth, because your lens is going to get some saltwater spray on it, and you want to make sure you're wiping that off. I had a photo used in a magazine recently, and there's a water droplet on the lens, and I can see it in the magazine. I don't know how others will. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it, but it just drove me nuts. And I just an example of just make sure that lens is clean on super stormy days like this, when the ocean is just going insane. I like to do super fast shutter speeds just so I can capture that viciousness, that raw power of the ocean. I think this is just stunning, And again, a longer shutter speed is just going to completely smooth that out, and we're not going to get this power in the wave here. So it might seem like simple, super advice, but when you're shooting the ocean, you have so much freedom with shutter speed, and the tools that you need are the tripod, the lens cleaner, or towel, maybe a filter for your lens so you can do ultra long shutter speeds if you'd like, and then your imagination. Let's say that you shot an image like this and you got home and you changed your mind. You're like, man, I wish I would have kept that shutter speed open longer. Well, check out this next video, because I'm going to show you how to use post-processing to achieve a similar motion blur look. All right, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again soon.